Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Our session topic is managing advanced purchasing workflow. My name is Pearman. I've been a consultant for close to 25 years and have come across several workflow and approval requirements. So let's take a look at some of this. In this session, we will review the advanced purchase approval options in Intacct. Utilize Sage Intacct's purchasing approval functionality to implement your organization's internal approval processes, helping to ensure that expenditures are authorized and correct. These policies typically address which transactions require approval and by whom. Sage Intacct offers robust and flexible functionality to manage approvals within the purchasing module. You can determine which purchasing transactions require approval, who needs to approve, the sequence of approvals, and which factors are used to determine the appropriate approver. For example, amounts or the department that transaction belongs to. Okay. So those are the details of the session, and we are going to go through a couple of slides and definitely look at the demonstration as well. Okay, so a workflow to provide advanced functionality requires multiple integrated capabilities. First requirement is approval policies. We need a flexible, scalable approval set of rules. Secondly, the approver needs to be informed when an action is required. This could be by email, that also within the email to easily access the transaction, a link is embedded within the email. So instead of just going and searching out for the transaction to approve, you could just click on the link. Instead of the email, the user can also have an approval workbench. So some of our customers say, we don't need emails all the time, reminding. In Intacct anyways, I'll look at the approval workbench and approve as it comes. That is also available. You can turn off the email. Next, the approver needs additional details, electronic attachments that support the transactions, for example, an invoice. This provides complete visibility. The transactions from the time of submittal to the final state will contain audit trails. Optionally, when the approver is not available, another user need to intervene, so the transaction flow is not paused. Okay, so we'll focus on purchase approval in this session. However, Intacct can perform approvals in several areas. We can create approval rules for additions or modifications of journal entries, and accounts payable vendors, bills, and payments, employee expense reports, and payments if you have that module. In purchasing, which we are going to focus today on mostly, approvals are available in requisitions, purchase orders, receipts, and in invoices. So depending on which transactions you're using, we could set up the approvals for them, one or all. In purchasing, we also have threshold levels that could be also used in the approval process. So we looked at what we can approve in Intacct, what transactions. Now we now see who can approve the creation of these records and transactions. In Intacct, we have different types of users. So the two of the main ones are business and employee users. First, we are looking at the business users. And these are these approvals that you're looking at, which is vendor approvals, bills and expenses. These can be done by both the business users and employee users. Okay, so all these can be done by both. So that is the good news. Only limitation on the employee user is the journal entry that you have to be a business user to approve. Okay, so let's look at the approval policies or rule types that can be created for basically a named user. So you could be one user and it always, for example, a CFO or a controller everything goes to that person, or a manager of an employee. So if an employee is entering a transaction or a project, so it could be a project manager or a location manager or a department manager. Okay, so we can create rules based on these and also based on transaction values and value ranges. In addition, Intacct provides unrestricted or admin approvers and approval delegates. These options assist when the designated approver is unavailable. So if you have an approver on vacation or off sick, you don't want that transaction getting stuck. You want to progress it. So it could be an unrestricted or admin approver or a delegate in terms of approving and continuing with this. So let's see how Intacct manages this in a demo. I have a scenario here, a purchase requisition that need to be approved by an employee manager. So the employee name is Penny Smith. So I have a demo system here. Let me just show here. Penny Smith is the name here you see. I'm logged in as Penny Smith, and her manager, employee manager, is Carla Grace, and I'm logged in as Carla Grace in my second tab here. So let's go take a look at the a transaction. In my case, I'm going to use a requisition. And in this case, I've entered my requisition as Penny Smith, and here's the value of the requisition. And I'm going to go ahead and submit. Of course, this one has also an attachment. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this. Okay. Now, as you could see, that requisition is changed to submitted state. If I go in as Penny Smith again, look at it, because I don't know who's going to approve it. You can always view the approval history. So this particular transaction has an employee manager rule type, and only one person need to approve it, which is the employee manager, who is the user, Carla Grace. Okay, and the state says submitted. So there's additional details in here. And now if I switch over to Carla's screen, so let me close here. Actually, let me also show you some additional audit trails here. So this shows that Penny Smith created it and then submitted it, and it's in a processing state. Okay, so there's additional audit trails we can look at. Now let me switch over to Carla Grace. Let me refresh the screen. Okay, now I have two purchase requisitions here in my approval workbench that's submitted. So I'm going to take a look at it. Now, in addition to that, I'm going to show you one more thing that Carla would have received. Here's an email, of course, that says, hi, Carla, the following purchasing transaction requires your approval. So remember, we talked about email reminders, and it says, here's the amount and also a link here. So I can just simply click on it, and that would take me to that particular transactions. Instead of drilling into it, now it takes me to that particular transaction or in the approval workbench. I could have done the same thing by clicking here and going into the same workbench. So there's multiple ways to link, connect to it. So I'm going to go now. Let me close this second session and look at this one, submitted one, and then see if I want to approve or decline it. So let me just expand this, and then I could view it and look for more details, make sure the coding is right or whatever the additional information. I could also look at the attachment as confirmation, and that attachment, of course, I don't have an exact detail, but that is an attachment that you could view. So now I could just simply go in and approve or decline. Okay. In this case, I'm going to approve this one, and I could put a comment to it. So click approve, But what I will be doing is to demonstrate for the other one, it seems to be that it's the same one, that same transaction that got submitted twice, or similar transaction, I should say, submitted twice. So I'm going to decline this one, okay, because it is for the same company, only the amounts are different. So probably the first one got entered wrong. So I'm going to decline this one, and I'm going to view both activity in a second. Okay. Now, if I go back to Penny's screen, and if I refresh my screen, as you could see, there's one of them that's declined. The other one has a pending state. That means I'm able to now convert it into another transaction state, which means it could be converted into an invoice or whatever the next flow in the process. Okay, so there is also confirmation that Penny receives that says your submitted has been declined. It could also be an approval, right? So here is the approval email that I have received, that has been approved, and here is the declining email that was received. Okay, so email reminders also show up, but Penny also could go in and look at it. Okay, so now if you go in and look at the audit trails, so this is the one that's declined. So we could look at it, and you could see that now the state is declined by Carla Grace, and the date and time and all the information. And if Carla has put in additional comments why she declined it, it'll show up here. So for example, duplicate or something. Now Penny has two options here. She could edit this and resubmit it, or delete it out of the system. Okay, either one, the option is available. Okay, so that's basically a simple purchase workflow approval process. Let me show you the approval history here for the ones that's approved. So here is an employee manager approval submitted to the person Carla Grace, and it is approved by Carla Grace. So it is an approved state now, and the time, the date is flagged here in the comment automatically by the system. So as you could see, it's a fully electronic approval process. And we have also, let me see if I can show you, there could be reports or custom reports that we could view how the approval cycle works, but the audit trail itself gives you a lot of information in this case. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint and recap. So to summarize, we reviewed how Intacct can approve transaction efficiently and fully electronically. We reviewed available approval policies, rules, and options. This concludes the demonstration part of the session for the advanced workflow for Sage Intacct. If you'd like to discuss further on approval workflow, please reach out to your BAS account manager or contact our support desk. At this time, we can take on any questions if you may have.
So we do have some questions here. So our first question is, will approvals work with requiring, oh, sorry, give me 1 second here, just lost.
I think it's recurring purchasing transactions?
Yes, with recurring purchasing transactions.
Yeah, okay, yes, that's a good question. Yes, each occurrence will require an approval. So if you have a recurring, let's say a requisition or a purchase order or an invoice, whichever it might be, and let's say it's a monthly recurring, every time it's generated, it'll be pushed to the approval process. Is there another question?
Perfect, yes. Next question is, can I have different thresholds for different types of purchases?
Yes, this will require a separate transaction definition, which we will configure for you, to which you can apply different set of approval policies.
Perfect. Next question here. Can I combine approval policies?
Okay, that's a good one too. There is a limitation on that one. So you cannot combine different approval policies, but you can have one approval policy per transaction definitions. But so for example, you could have, let's say purchase orders. You could create multiple transaction definitions for this purchase order, and the user will pick the right definition based on the approval policies, right? And also you can utilize the same rule type sets across different approval policies and layer as needed.
Great. Next question here is, in the event the department manager and a subsequent named user are the same person, will Intacct ask them to approve twice?
Uh-huh. So in that sense, in that scenario, Intacct becomes a little bit more intelligent because it knows both are the same approver. So let's say, for example, you have, you mentioned department manager and a named user. So the named user also is the department manager. That's what you're saying. And it goes to the department manager first and then goes to the named user second. So in this case, Intacct is smart enough to know that it is the same person and it will only ask you to approve once, not twice.